In today's class, you will learn about POJO, Java POJO. What is Java POJO? So POJO stands for plain old Java object. So what is object? If you instantiate a class, then it will become an object. A class has the definition, prototype. It has the data, it has the member variables, and it has methods. And when you instantiate the class, it will become an object. How do you instantiate a class? Using new operator. So whenever you instantiate a class using new operator, it will allocate memory, and then you will create an object for the class. You can create multiple objects for the same class. So let us look at it. In a few minutes, we are going to write POJOs and understand how these classes will look like, how you're going to instantiate them. And these classes, basically, whenever you instantiate, it will call the constructor. So every class will have a constructor. A default constructor will be provided. Whenever you instantiate an object, it will call the constructor, and then will be instantiated, allocated a memory, and then it will become an object at runtime. And then it will run, basically. So whenever you use that object, you can store the data, you can run methods of that object, and you can see the functionality, behavior. So let us look at what is this POJO is. So as you know, POJO stands for plain old Java object. It's a simple Java object. So in Java object, each variable should be declared as private. So all the variables, member variables, should be declared as private. It is also called encapsulation. It should not be public, basically. So the data should be private. Default constructor should be overridden with a public accessibility. You should have a default constructor. You can instantiate using default constructor. So default constructor is there. So let us see how to write the default constructor also. Each variable should have its setters and getters with public accessibility. So since private data, so then you need to have a methods, setters and getters to get the data, to change the data. Getters are used to access the data, to get the data. Setters are used to mutate the data, to change the data. So POJO should have member variables and its getters and setters. Generally, POJO should override equals hashcode toString. These three methods come from every class, basically extend object class in Java. It comes from object class. We'll show you basically that one. So should override it, but it is not mandatory. So it should have equals hashcode toStrings. Whenever you compare two objects, it will call equals. Whenever you store this object into a hash map somewhere, basically, it will call a hash code. If you want to stringify what is there in that object, if you want to put it as a string, you need to call this toString. It will call toString method, and it will stringify the object to put it as a string. The whole object. Object means it contains the member variables, which is also called fields, and methods, which are public getters and setters to get the data, to set the data. So that's why basically you need to have toString method to stringify an object. A POJO should not do the following: extend pre-specified classes. It should be a simple object. It should not extend any other classes. Should not implement any pre-specified interfaces. Should not contain any pre-specified annotations. So basically these things a POJO should not do, basically. Should not extend, should not implement. The interface should not extend pre-defined classes, should not implement pre-specified interfaces, should not contain pre-specified annotations. So let us write a POJO now. Okay. So as usual, we are writing all the programs using NetBeans. Open a NetBeans IDE. IDE stands for Integration Development Environment. This is the tool we are using to write our Java programs, Java applications. So I'm going to write a simple POJO, a student POJO. Student is basically a student. Any person is a student. So any person can be a student. A student has, what are the properties a student have? Student will have a name. Student will have some college or school name. Okay, and student will have some age. Now let us start with these three variables. Let me create a simple class. Is it just a class? POJO is also nothing but a Java class. Plain old Java class, simple Java class. So if I create this Java class, I will give this name as a student. This is one POJO. Student is a POJO. And you click the finish button to create this student class. So in our previous classes, we created many classes. We have a lot of main. Those classes have main. Those classes have like business functionality like calculations, addition, subtraction, and reading a file, and a lot of things we did basically. So those are all actually has a lot of complex logic. Now POJO means they don't have any business functions. They don't have any calculations. They don't have any functionality. It has just a data. It has a fields. It has number variables. Number variables also called fields. Fields and getters and setters to access and set those fields. So let us see what are those fields are. So as usual, a class when you created it, it will have a package like this. It will create you package, and the public is a public class basically, and the class student. This is the name basically. So whenever you write a POJO class, all the member variables, all the fields should be private. So the private. So the student has all the properties of a student. Student string. Student has a name. Okay. Private. Integer. Student will have age. Private. String. School name basically. So let's start with these three properties. So I've got properties, fields, member variables, all are same. Okay, whenever I call basically is a field, it is also called it is nothing but a data in the POJO. I also sometimes call it as a member variable. I also sometimes call it as a property. Okay, all are same. Okay? So the student has three fields: name, age, school name. If you write a POJO, simple POJO, so the data should be, this is called data basically. So if you have 10 students in a school, 10 students like John has is his own name. Martin is another student. Amrita is another student. Tej is another student. So there are different students are there. They all have their own names. That's why, so name is one of the property, one of the field of the student, and everyone has their own age, and everyone have their own school name. So these three, basically whenever you capture student information, you have to get all the students in an array. Array means what is that? It will store all the values, right? It has all the objects of the students. Suppose school contains 10 students, array can hold 10 students information. So that we did in arrays in the last class also. So we have a student has fields name, age, school name 3, and so this is all the member variables should be private, and you should have a default constructor, public default constructor. Constructor always start with class name like this. So see, if you look, it doesn't have a return type. Constructor doesn't have any return type. It is always public. The POJO when you write it should be public. You should not write any private. Private means other classes cannot access from outside. Only you can access this data from inside the class. You cannot access this data from outside the class. So that's why it's private. Public means, so whenever you instantiate any class, it will call constructor. That's why constructor should be public. So this student class can be instantiated from any other classes. That's why you have to make it as a public. If you make it private, you cannot instantiate the student class from other classes. Then you cannot create this POJO. So that is the problem. That's why you have to have a public constructor. The default, this is called default constructors. There is no argument here. If you look at here, this doesn't have any input arguments here. It's just a simple, it will create allocate a memory for the student. Okay, and each member variable should have getter and setter, because this data is private. You cannot access the data directly from the outside the classes. So now to access the data, you should have a getter, and to set the data, you should have a setter. So now the getters and setters are methods. They all should be public methods. Whenever you get it, basically you will return it data, right? So it's basically for name. For this name, if you write a getter, it would be like this. This is the naming convention you should follow. String is return type. Okay, get n first letter is caps. So always, you know that naming convention. The variables always starts from lowercase letter. Here, if you look at always letter, and this get the method name starts with camel case letter. Camel case basically they follow. So first letter is G is actually is a verb. Get is a verb, right? G starts with lowercase. Name starts with uppercase N basically. Get name, open brace, close brace, and curly braces. Start with curly braces. So what it returns? It returns the field name. Return name. So this is basically a getter for a name. I want to write a set. Now that is also public. Setter is just setting it. It is not written anything. So the setter will be void. Return type would be void for setter. And you're going to call set. Set is a verb. It starts with lowercase letter. And name, camel case. So N is always supposed to. It has two words. Set, name. So set is a verb basically. So for the setter. And N is a name of the member variable basically name, right? E is lowercase in case of field name, but it is a first letter is always uppercase whenever you write a method for that one. So it is called camel case. Okay, and so open brace, close brace, curly braces, and in the setter you are setting the value. So you have to pass the value in the input. You have to input the value to this method. So that is a string type. Name is a string type, right? This is a string type. So you have to put as a string some name here, name. Whenever you pass this name here, it is going to set the name. So this means this object. So basically whenever you set first John object, Martin object, you need to set name for an object. So this is it will point to the POJO, the same word POJO basically the whatever object you are trying to set, it will point to them. This dot, what is that? Name equal to name basically. So this name is same, that's why you confuse it. So just change this as a N. Okay, then it is better. So here also you can write this dot name. This means whatever presents this object. This is a keyword in Java which will give the object, point to the object. It's a pointer to the same object that you are accessing. So these are the getter and setter for name. Like that, I'm going to write get. So age is basically this is getter for the age is because age is an integer. So this is an integer field. That's why return type for getter should be integer. Public int and get age. Same notation you should follow. So basically the camel case. So A is a capital letter, get the G should be lowercase letter. And what it returns? It return this dot age. It will return the age. So this return age is an integer type. So it matches here. It doesn't throw you any error. Now these are the two for the set name, right? These two are the getter and setter for name. I wrote a getter for age. Now I'm going to write a setter for age. Public. Setter return type is void because it is not returning anything. You just set the value. Set age. What is the age? Basically, it's integer age. What type of the age you are passing? Age, right? A, and here this dot age equal to A. You're setting it. Equal to means assignment operator. So right hand will be assigned to the left hand. This is the right hand, which is you pass it to the method. Okay, and left hand is you are storing that value, right? The object. So left hand is a field, a member variable of this class. So this is the age basically, right? So you're setting that one. This is just a point. So that means it's the same. So it will store the data in the same object that you are setting it. If you store the data in the John object, it will store the data in the John object. So you need this operator. This is also keyword actually. This is an operator. This keyword basically where it will point to the object that you are referring to. So this is the get and setter for age. Now let me go to public. I'm going to write a getter for school name. You have a school name, right? This is a student. Your student will have a school name. This what is type? This is string type. So I'm going to write a school name public, return type is string, get SCH school name. So look at here and open brace, close brace, flower brackets, this is a curly braces, and return this dot school name. If you look at here, there are three words are there: get, school name. So whenever you write a field here, it's a camel case, right? S started with lowercase, N is uppercase, right? Here, whenever you get a method for a getter setter, see, get is already there, one word is there, right? Get. So G starts with lowercase, but S starts with uppercase and N starts with uppercase. Just observe that one, okay? This should be in this notation. So you have to follow the same notation for getters and setters. So now I have three fields in this class, and I have getters and setters for the three fields. That's all. This is a very simple POJO. You wrote a student POJO now. Okay, this is a simple POJO for a student. So that's all. This is a POJO, simple spell on object. You are not going to extend any in classes, other classes, and you are not going to implement anything. You are not going to use any pre-specified annotations. You write a simple fields, which is also called data, also called number variables, and also one constructor here, public constructor, and you have getters and setters for each field present in the POJO. Okay, and you need not write by hand getters and setters. You can right click it and you can generate them as well. But for now, let us write by hand so that you can basically understand what is getters and setters like that basically. So usually you don't need to write them by hand. You can generate them also basically getters and setters. Okay, and now you wrote a student Java POJO. Let us write another POJO, employee basically. So students are school students basically. School will present in school. Employees basically work for an organization, work for a company. I'm going to write another class, Java class, POJO class for employee. Employee. Okay, so the name of the class is employee. This is employee POJO, and click finish button here to create employee class. It's a simple class basically. So you see it has a default, it doesn't have anything actually here. It's just a class definition here. Public class is a public class. It has a package information here, which package it is created. And so now I'm writing, so all the employees will have also name. So private means the name should be private. The field should be private in a POJO. Private string. It will be name is like John. Right, employee name is John. John is a string. It is not an integer. It cannot be integer basically, right? So John is a string. So you should define it as a string, the name. Okay, private. So employee can have also age. Employee will have a company name. So company name is like a JPMC, JP Morgan, or CVS Pharmacy, or any company name basically. So it should be a string. It cannot be integer, right? Company name. I have three fields in this POJO. Now I need to have a getters and setters. I need to have a constructor. Constructor is one which will construct the object. Default constructor doesn't have any arguments. So public is a constructor name and class name would be same. Employee. It doesn't have any arguments. It doesn't have any. You don't pass any data here or input here. It's just a open brace, close brace. Like this. Okay, so this why you need this one, so to instantiate the class public constructor. Okay, and you will have a getters and setters for each field present in the POJO. So now the getters and setters should be public. So I'm writing public, and getter is basically for name for getter is return type is string because it's a string one. It's written the string. And the name should whatever the field name is, it will have get and name. So this notation you have to follow whenever you create a getters and setters. And return what it returns. This is because it's written in string, right? This is a public method. You get whatever the value present in the name using this getter. You cannot directly use name field because it's a private. Because you need to use a public method to access this data. That's why it's called accessor. Okay, return this dot name. Okay, and you're going to write a setter. public setter always return type would be void, because you are going to set some value in the object. It is not returning anything. Get means return it, set means set the value, right? Set name. What name you will set? What is the name type? It's a string name basically, right? N. So you are setting the value there. This dot name equal to n. So you are setting some data inside the name present in the POJO. So, and whenever you call getter, it will return you the data present in the name field. Okay, now I wrote the getters and setters for name. Now I'm going to write for age and company name. So it should be simple basically. So when you write a getter, what is the return type of age? Age type is integer. So the public method to access the age should also return integer. So get age and open brace, close brace. It doesn't take any data basically. It just return it. It is not setting anything, right? That's why this is actually, this parameter is empty. Empty data will be there. Return this dot age and semicolon. Semicolon, this is the notation. You need to end with semicolon every statement in Java. You know by already now. So public, so I wrote a getter. Now I'm going to write a setter. Public void. Setter is always return type is void, because you are just setting the value. You are not. It is not returning anything to you. So that's why void set age and open. And what is the age? Age type is integer. So you are setting you're passing some integer value, age value, and you are setting this dot age equal to a. So I wrote getters and setters for age. Now I'm going to write getters and setters for another field, which is, what is the field name? So the company name. Now this is the company name basically, right? The third field. So every field present in this POJO should have getter and setter. So now I'm going to write public. What is the company name type? So string type. So it should return string. Get company name. Open brace, close brace, and curly braces. Return this dot. If you write company here, this is the company name, is the field name present in this POJO. And what is the setter? Public. Setter return type is void. Set company name. What it takes, the setter method, it takes string, because company name is string. You can put as a C, company name, and this dot company name equal to C. So you wrote a setters and getter, constructor, and fields in the POJO. This is how you are going to write a POJO. You can write any number of POJOs: employee POJO, customer POJO, and product POJO. So based on the requirement, whatever you want, you can create a POJO for each of them, basically, like a student POJO, school POJO, and product POJO, and employee POJO. So like that, the POJO is simple actually. It has a properties. It will have a fields of that particular thing, and then it will have getters or setters, and it will have a constructor. Now I'm going to write a main. Okay, this is a student, right? I wrote a employee, and also I wrote a student POJO, right? So I'm going to write a student main. So I'm going to instantiate. I'm going to put the student. I'm going to write another class called student main. This is a Java class. So this is not a POJO. This is a main class, student main. Okay. So if you click the finish button here, it will create a student class for you. Okay. So these are the comments you can put it. We'll do it later. For now, I'm just creating empty classes basically, and with some data in there. Okay. So if you want some comments, you can put it like this. So these are the comments basically. If you want to write this is a student class, student main class. And you can also do what is the purpose of this class your creation. We'll come to this Java docs. So whenever you generate a Java document for the reference manual, so Java docs, it will use this one and generate a documentation for your classes. Now let us focus on how to create the POJOs and how to instantiate them. This is the main class. So public static void main string. So this is the main, that's how basically, so you already know by now, so how to create a main class. So you need a main method to run the class basically. So now you have a main class here. Now I need to instantiate all the POJOs, right? So whenever you create like this POJO, student S1 equal to new student. You are instantiating POJO. Basically, this is a student object, S1 student object. Whenever you call this new operator, what new operator does is it will call a constructor on this. It will call this constructor and instantiate that POJO. Whatever there in this constructor, it will be set there. You can write some simple statement here. Actually, system dot out dot println student constructor. It will call that constructor. Just to verify that it is calling constructor or not, you can just put some traces. Trace means a log. It will print to the console basically. System dot out dot println. So let us go to student main. So you created one student. Now you need to set the data. It is empty. So the student has what student has? Student has a name, age, and school name. Now whenever you create this one, it is by default. Nothing is there. It's empty there. Now you have to set the values there. How do you set the values? S1. This is the object POJO, right? This is S1 is a student POJO. S1 dot set name. You have to call the setter. What you're going to John is a student in your school. So you set the name. S1 dot set age. What is John age? It is 14 years. And S1 dot set school name. Set age, set name, set school. Why school name is not coming here? Let us go and see what is there in the student POJO. So I have school name here, private string school name, but it is not coming up there. Why? Because public. So I wrote only getter. I didn't write any setter for school name. That's why it is not showing up whenever I click the dot there. So you have to write public void set school name. Setters and getters must be there. What is school name type? String. So school name. So you're going to pass the school name there, and this method will be called whenever you pass the school name. So this dot, so school name equal to yes. Basically, you are creating an object with all the data. Okay, you're going to save this one. So every field should have getter and setter. Here now, if you go here and if you S1 dot set, you see school name. Its school name will come up here. What is the school? You can put school as a heritage. This is a school where he is going to. So this is an object, one object. S1 is one object. I'm creating another object, student S2 equal to new student. So this is, so using POJOs, you can create multiple students and you can store all the students in an array. Okay. So S2 dot set name. What is the name of student? Amrita. Student name is Amrita. S2 dot set age. Age is 13 years. S2 dot set school name. Heritage. So you look at here how it is going. And this is one, like that you can write any number of students. This is how basically you're going to use POJO. So POJO is a simple plain old object. Java class. Java class is nothing but it's a definition. But whenever you instantiate a Java class, student Java class, whenever you instantiate using new operator, this will become an object. POJO, plain old Java object. S1 is an object. And you're setting this is the runtime. This will be created at runtime. At compile time, this is just a definition. Student is just a definition. What is the name? It will have the what the properties and what the fields that student will have. It will have a definition of that. But whenever you in the main, whenever you instantiate this one at runtime, whenever you run a program, when you program, this will run time, it will create a POJO, and basically you are storing the real object, real information of the students. John, age to heritage. Every student will have his own object, his or her own object here. POJOs. You can create multiple POJOs. One student class, if suppose if you are 100 student in a school, you can create 100 object, 100 POJOs. You can store it in a list, or you can store it in an array, and you can store it eventually into a database. You can store anywhere those students, but you need a POJO to set the data, to access the data. Suppose, for example, if I want to, I set this data here. I want to access the data. How do you access this one? So system.out.print ln. I want to see S1. How do you access the data from S1? S1 is student. S1 name. So S1 is an object name dot getter. Use get name here. So when you type get here, you will get a get. I'm displaying get name. This is on S1. Suppose if you do system dot out dot print ln, suppose whoever there in S2, if you want to see what is the name, so you can print that name, S2 dot get name. So whenever you click on like that, you can do a name, age, and school name, everything. Suppose if you use, so this is print ln, print. Okay, so like this, basically you can print. Getters are used to access, get the data and print to the console, or you can do processing, you can do anything. Setters are used to set the data in object. So you are setting the name inside the object. You are getting the name from the object. So getters are used to read the data. Setters are used to set the data. That's why setters are called mutators. Mute the data, means change the data in the object. And getters is a accessors to get the data. So if I run this main, so because it's a main program, right? So I can run the main program. So because any class that has a main, I can run it. If a class doesn't have main, I cannot run it. So run 5, I run that one, because I set the data here and I read the data. I read the data here, right? So like that, basically you can persist the data into objects. See, so the name is null. So basically, let us see what's going wrong here. So you have S1, you created a student, S2 is null. See, student constructor is called, but the data coming as a null here. So S1, right? S1, I set the name as John, okay? And I set the name as John, and here S1 dot get name, I'm doing it. So let me see what's wrong in this one. Let me go to student. If I go to student here, so here the name is the name, string name, and get the name. So whenever I set the name, see here I did a spelling mistake. I am passing here as a, this is my argument n, but I wrote something like a name here. These two are two different things. Okay? So you have to type n. Whatever you pass in the setter, that should be the right hand side. What are the field you have in this class, that should be on the left hand side, because the data from right hand side will be copied into the left hand side. So my program has a bug, logical bug, runtime bug, because at compile time I couldn't locate, I couldn't find this issue, but when I run it, I was getting the data as empty data. So when I look at my code, I think I did something mistake there. It didn't give me comparison error, but at runtime it gave me the error, basically saying that it didn't print the right data, basically. So now when I corrected this one, I go back to my main and I run this file. If I run this file, I should have the right name printed on my console. So let us see, is it working or not? See, now it is working. So S1 name is John. So this is John, S1 name, and S2 name is Amrita. Because S1 name I am setting as John, and the S2 object I am setting name as Amrita. I am just using getters. I am accessing the data, access of this data, and print it to the console. So I am using setters and getters. So like this, in your upcoming programs, we're going to write many programs later. All these things, in all those programs, we are going to write many POJOs. That's all for today. Thank you for watching.